My name is Sarah Altman, and I was 32 the night I timed my arrival like a stunt. 6:58 p.m. for a 7 reservation. Exactly 2 minutes to decide whether I could sit across from my father while he itemized the ways I was failing at adulthood. Spoiler, I wasn't ready. But I went anyway, because Mom had called 3 times that week and, in the last voicemail, had said, "Please come. Your sister will be there. We miss you." Translation: gather at a place where screaming would be tacky. The restaurant was as kind that tried too hard. Dark wood, deliberate shadows, waiters who moved like synchronized swimmers. Dad was already at the table, pretending the wine list was a quarterly report. Mom smoothed her napkin, then smoothed it again like it might give a different answer if she kept asking. And Danny, my older sister, immaculate as an ad, sat across from them, her attention welded to her phone, finance apps probably, or her group chat named after winning. I still felt 12 walking into a principal's office. "There she is," Dad said without looking up. "The artist." The word landed like the problem. "Hi, Dad." I slid into my chair. "Good to see you." "Is it?" he asked, finally lifting his eyes. "Because Sunday dinners don't see much of you lately." "I've been busy." "With what?" Mom's voice softened into the trap she's always set. "With your writing?" There it was, the noun that made me a punchline in my own family. "Yes," I said, "with my writing." Danny looked up. "Still not published yet, right? Just freelancing and dipping into savings?" She said it as a question. It wanted to be a bruise. "That's not quite accurate," I said, careful like a person defusing a bomb at the dinner table. "What part?" Dad set the wine list down. "The part where you quit a perfectly good job? Or the part where you've been in that apartment for 2 years working on a novel no one will ever read?" Heat climbed my spine. I quit because I wasn't happy. "No one's happy at work," Danny said. "That's why it's called work." "Some people are," I said. "People who choose what fits." Dad leaned in. "Not people who sit in coffee shops, typing fantasies and hoping the world will pay for them." Mom made a small sound that meant, "I agree, but I'm kind." I kept my face calm, the way you learn to in families that grade you. "I've been serious about this," I said. "I have a plan." "For 2 years?" Dad's eyebrows rose. "How long do you expect us to watch you waste your potential?" "I'm not wasting your education, your time, your opportunities," he said, each word a gavel. "Do you know how many people would kill for your degree, your connections? And you're throwing it away." I didn't look at Danny because she was the poster child for practical. Promotions like clockwork, a condo that matched her shoes. In our family mythology, Danny was the map. I was the detour. "Your sister is making 6 figures," Dad continued. "Stability, a future, and you? An apartment you can barely afford, and a daydream." "Maybe not," I said quietly, "but it's mine. I'd rather try for what I want than live with a version of me you approve of." Dad's face flushed the precise color of the Cabernet he hadn't ordered yet. "That's called being ungrateful. That's called not understanding reality." "I understand," I said, palms flat under the table. "I understand that your reality expects me to be miserable. You're choosing to be a disappointment." Silence. The waiter did a reconnaissance pass and retreated. My phone buzzed. Under the table, a text from Lucas. "Thinking of you. You've got this. Call me after?" I stared at his name a beat too long, an anchor I could have used. Then I put the phone face down. Another notification flashed. A social tag I didn't open. Sabrina, his ex, had a talent for vague posts with sharp edges. Not tonight. Dad exhaled. "Life isn't about your dreams, Sarah. It's about being practical, responsible." "I am responsible." "You are selfish," he said. "Impractical. You won't amount to anything if you chase fantasies." The speech landed with the authority of a final verdict. I folded my napkin carefully, one small ritual, one small dignity, and set it on my lap. Then I stood. "I'm going to go." "Sit down," Dad said. "We just got here." "There's no point," I said. "You decided who I am before I sat down." "Let's order," Mom pleaded. "We can talk calmly." "There's nothing to talk about. You think I'm a failure. You think I'm wasting my life. I heard you." I looked at Dad. "You don't want to know me. You want to be right about me." His jaw tightened. "You're doing a great job proving me right." I nodded, the kind that seals envelopes. I pushed in my chair. "Here is what I did not say. That at 6:03 that morning, my agent had called me laughing and crying, And I had become the kind of writer people fly places, the kind of writer whose book starts a bidding war, the kind with foreign rights and a film option glimmering like a dare. I did not say 3 million out loud in a restaurant where my father measured worth by zeros. I did not say it because saying it would turn my life into their scoreboard. I did not say it because something about the number felt fragile, still unfurling, a butterfly drying its wings. Mostly, I did not say it because I wanted to choose myself in a quiet way first. I stepped away from the table. "Sarah," Mom's voice broke, "please." I paused, the way you do when an old ache calls your name. "You're upset I didn't become your idea of me," I said. "I'm upset you never asked who I actually am." Danny stared at her phone, the screen reflecting in her eyes. "We're worried about you," she said. "That's not a crime." "It's not," I said, "but confusing control with care is." I turned, walked past the hostess stand, past the wall of bottles arranged like trophies, into a night that smelled like rain. My phone buzzed again. "Lucas, proud of you. Wherever you are on that, I'm on your side." I typed, "Call you in 10, then deleted it, then typed, soon." On the sidewalk, the city moved the way it always does, oblivious to private revolutions. I thought about the email subject line, matched, 3 NMOs. You did it. I thought about the novel that had kept me alive, the one I'd written while being told to grow up, get over it, choose a lane with benefits. I could have gone back inside and won the argument by dropping a number. It would have been easy and delicious and instantly regrettable. Because if my worth only counted when it could be bragged about, I would be trapped in a glass case labeled, "Prove it," for the rest of my life. I chose the harder story, leave without the victory lap. The sky spit a few cold drops. I lifted my face to it, felt the sting and the relief, and let the door close behind me. When I got home that night, the rain had followed me, soft, deliberate, the kind that sounds like an apology against glass. My apartment was dim, except for the soft light above my desk, still littered with notes from revisions. I hung my coat, kicked off my heels, and let myself breathe. That morning, at 6:03 a.m., my phone had vibrated with a message from my agent. They matched. 3 unknown. You did it. At first, I thought I was dreaming. I reread it 12 times before my brain caught up. Then came her call. Marianne, my agent, voice shaking with laughter and disbelief. "You're not hallucinating, Sarah. You're officially a published author with a 7-figure deal. And not just any deal. This is front page material. You're going to interviews, book tours, the whole circus." I had laughed, but quietly. It felt too big to fit inside a room that still smelled like takeout and printer ink. $3 million, I whispered back, tasting the words like something expensive I wasn't sure I deserved. "Believe it," Marianne said. "It's for inheritance of silence. They're calling it a modern masterpiece. One editor said it's the kind of debut that changes the market." After she hung up, I just sat there for 3 hours, motionless. The walls hummed with disbelief. I stared at the blinking cursor on my screen, my name at the top of the contract, and felt a strange kind of grief. Because success didn't erase the years of being dismissed. It just made them echo differently. That night, I'd walked into that dinner thinking maybe, just maybe, they'd see me, but they didn't, and so I didn't tell them. No one knew. Not my family, not even Lucas. He texted later, "How'd dinner go?" I typed, "Fine, I'll tell you later." But later became never. Not yet. The news felt fragile, like if I said it out loud, it might evaporate. For the next few weeks, I worked in secret. Coffee shops, late-night editing calls, contract meetings that felt like undercover missions. I smiled at strangers, not because of what I'd earned, but because of what I'd survived. Then the article came. It was supposed to be a harmless local piece, debut author from the City Signs historic publishing deal. A full-page spread, my photo, my quote. "Sometimes you have to choose yourself before anyone else will." I hadn't realized it was scheduled to run that week. But someone did. His name was Harold, Dad's golf buddy, retired banker, a man who thought gossip was a form of currency. According to Mom, he called that morning. "Hey, did you see this? Your daughter's in the paper. Says she's some famous author now." Apparently, Dad went quiet, completely white, the kind of silence that means something is cracking beneath it. He asked Harold to send the link. Then he read the article 3 times before picking up the phone. My phone rang just after noon. "Mom, your father wants you to call him," she said. "Why?" I asked, though I already knew. "He saw the article." I stared at the half-empty coffee cup beside my laptop. Okay. He's upset. Because I published a book? Or because he found out from Harold and not from me? Mom hesitated. Does it matter? It does to me, I said. If he's upset because he was left out, I get that. If he's upset because I succeeded, that's something else. He just thinks he should have known, Sarah. We all should have known. Why? I asked quietly. So you could support me? Or so you could tell me it was a mistake before the ink dried? That's not fair, she said. It's exactly fair. The silence on the line stretched until it felt like static. He wants to apologize, she said finally. I laughed under my breath. No, he doesn't. He wants to rewrite the narrative. He wants to be part of a success story he didn't believe in. That's not true. It's completely true, Mom. If the book had flopped, if I'd lost everything, he would have told everyone. See, I warned her. But now that it's a win, suddenly he wants credit for caring. He was scared, Sarah, she said softly. We both were. Scared of what? Scared that you'd ruin your life chasing something impossible. I closed my laptop. And what if I had? Would you have loved me less? Mom didn't answer. Later that day, I walked to the small park near my building. It was cold, but I needed the air. I sat on the same bench where I'd written entire chapters of Inheritance of Silence. I thought about every morning I'd shown up here with coffee, telling myself that even if no one ever read it, it mattered that I wrote it. Now people all over the country were pre-ordering it, and the people who'd once pitied me were angry they hadn't been told. My phone buzzed again. Lucas. He'd seen the article too. Sarah, why didn't you tell me? This is huge. You should be celebrating. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, because I needed to feel it was real before I shared it. He called immediately. You really think I'd care more about the money than the words? I don't know, I admitted. I didn't want it to change how people saw me. I didn't want to become a headline. You've always been more than that, he said. You just didn't believe it yet. The way he said it, quiet, certain, made my throat tighten. He always knew how to find the thread of truth in my panic. I'll tell my family soon, I said finally, but not yet. Then wait until you're ready, he said. You don't owe anyone your peace. And just like that, I exhaled. 2 days later, Mom called again. He's calmer now, she said. He's been reading everything about your book online. He even ordered a copy. Good for him. He really wants to talk. Not yet, I said. I'm not ready. What are you afraid of? I thought about that. That he'll say he's proud, but only because I made money. Mom sighed. Maybe that's where it starts. Sometimes pride comes before understanding. Or instead of it, I murmured. When I hung up, I turned off my phone, pulled my laptop closer, and opened the document that had become my second heart. At the top of the screen, the title glowed, Inheritance of Silence. A story about a woman who spent her life chasing approval until she realized silence was the loudest kind of freedom. That night, for the first time, I believed the ending might finally belong to me. The book release came faster than I expected. 3 months later, the city was blanketed in posters, hashtags, and quotes I'd once scribbled half awake on napkins. Inheritance of Silence was everywhere. Reviewers called it a haunting debut about conditional love. One headline read, A Daughter's Rebellion that became a generation's anthem. It should have felt like triumph, but mostly it felt like exposure. Every page was personal, every wound renamed but recognizable. Danny's ambition. Mom's quiet disapproval. Dad's sharpness disguised as logic. I disguised them in fiction, but anyone who knew us could read between the lines. My publicist warned me. The closer to truth you write, the louder the echo when it hits home. She wasn't wrong. The night before the first interview aired, I got a text from Danny. Nice job airing our dirty laundry to the whole world. I stared at the message for a long time. I'd expected anger. I hadn't expected how much it would still sting. I typed, It's fiction, Danny. No one knows it's you. Then deleted it. Because she was right. Everyone who mattered would know. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Emails, mentions, journalists, even old professors. Then came the call I'd been avoiding. Dad. I let it ring twice before answering. Hi, I said carefully. I read the book, he said, voice low, all of it. I braced myself. Okay. It's good. The words landed stiff, like they weren't used to leaving his mouth. It's better than I thought it would be. Thank you, I said, though it sounded like a question. But why didn't you tell us sooner, he asked. We found out from strangers, Sarah. From Harold, of all people. Because the last time I tried to tell you about my writing, you called it a fantasy, I said quietly. I was trying to protect you. From what? Failure? From wasting your life, he said. You have to understand, I cut him off before the apology could stumble out. You don't get to rewrite history now that it worked out. He was silent, then softer. I'm proud of you. It should have felt good. It didn't. I wanted to believe him, but I could hear the fine print under every syllable, now that you've made it. Lucas took me out to dinner that night. He'd booked a small Italian place. Candlelight, warm bread, no expectations. I was exhausted, but the kind of exhausted that comes from having too many people finally listen. He lifted his glass. To the woman who didn't need anyone's permission. I smiled. You make it sound brave. It just felt necessary. It was both, he said. I saw what it cost you. For a moment, I almost told him about my father's call, how proud and hollow it had sounded. But I didn't. Some victories are too fragile to dissect. Across the room, I noticed a woman watching us. Sharp bob, red lipstick, familiar in the way memories you'd rather forget can be. Sabrina, Lucas's ex, the one who still hovered in the background of mutual friends' posts, like unfinished business. She smiled at me. Not cruelly, just knowingly. The kind of smile that says, I see your life from the outside now, and it's louder than mine. I didn't look away first. Weeks passed. The book climbed bestseller lists, regional, then national, then international. The world loved what my family had tried to silence. And yet, success didn't feel like revenge. It felt like standing in the middle of a storm you created, trying not to be struck by your own lightning. Mom called one night, voice trembling. I read it, she said. The part about feeling invisible. That's me, isn't it? Yes. Long pause. Then, I'm sorry. Something in me cracked, quietly but undeniably. I know, I said. Thank you. Danny called 2 days later. Her voice was clipped, controlled. You really made me the villain. You made yourself the blueprint, I said. I just changed the names. She sighed. Maybe I deserved it. I didn't reply, because forgiveness isn't a conversation. It's a process that starts in silence. 2 months later, the New York Times called. Full feature, photo shoot, questions about process, trauma, healing. The journalist asked, Have your parents read it? Yes, I said. They're processing. And your sister? She's somewhere between angry and understanding. He smiled. That's usually where the truth lives. By the time the piece ran, the article had gone viral. My inbox overflowed with messages from readers, people who saw themselves in my pages, people thanking me for putting words to the kind of pain they'd been told to swallow. One message stood out. It was from an address I didn't recognize. Subject, for what it's worth. Body, you made me see myself in a way I didn't want to. That means you told the truth. Dad. I sat staring at it, blinking back tears I hadn't realized were there. He didn't say, I'm sorry. He didn't have to. It was the first honest thing he'd ever written to me. The next morning, my publicist called. Chicago's going to be huge. Standing room only. Everyone's talking about you. I should have been thrilled. Instead, all I could think was, what if they're there? What if my family shows up? I asked. Then maybe it's time to stop running from the story you already told, she said. Her words lingered long after the call ended. That night, I sat at my desk again. Same lamp, same hum of rain against glass. I opened a blank document. Title, When Silence Becomes Sound. Maybe, I thought, that's what this next chapter is about. Not proving anything. Just hearing everything for what it really is. The bookstore in Chicago was massive. 3 floors of polished wood and glass, aisles that smelled like paper and caffeine. By the time I arrived, every seat was filled. People stood shoulder to shoulder, holding copies of Inheritance of Silence like something sacred. My publicist, Diana, was practically vibrating beside me. This is it, Sarah, the big one. National media's here. Local stations, too. You're trending again. Did you see? I hadn't. I'd muted half my notifications after the New York Times feature. Too much noise. Too many voices trying to translate my story for me. I took a slow breath and stepped onto the stage. The applause was deafening. A tidal wave of sound that made my chest ache. For a second, I felt weightless. Then I saw them. My family, front and center, in the 3rd row. Dad, Mom, Danny, even Aunt Carol, who I hadn't seen since she told me to get a real job. My throat closed around words I'd said hundreds of times in rehearsed interviews. But now, none of it felt rehearsed. This is surreal, I said into the microphone, my voice trembling. Because my family is here tonight, sitting in the audience, listening to me talk about my family. Laughter rippled through the crowd, warm, sympathetic. I smiled faintly. I can't decide if this is very healing, I added, or very traumatic. More laughter, but my father smiled, really smiled. Not the polite, distant kind, the proud kind, the kind I'd once imagined but never thought I'd see. The moderator began asking questions about the book, the writing process, the meaning of silence, the fictionalized family. And then came the one I dreaded. Has your relationship with your family changed since Inheritance of Silence came out? I looked at the audience, at my dad's red eyes, at Mom clutching her purse like a life raft, at Danny staring straight ahead, arms crossed, but face softening. Some of it has, I said slowly. My father and I, we've been trying. He was wrong about me, and I was defensive about being underestimated. We're still learning how to meet in the middle, where I don't need to prove I'm worthy, and he doesn't have to apologize for being human. The crowd was quiet. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. That sounds healthy, the interviewer said. It's progress, I replied, and sometimes that's enough. After the signing, I stepped into the hallway behind the stage to catch my breath. My pulse was still racing. Diana handed me a water bottle. You did amazing, she said. That line about forgiveness, that's going to go viral. Great, I said, half laughing, half shaking. Exactly what my family needs. More publicity. She smiled knowingly. They came, didn't they? That's what matters. I wanted to believe her. When I walked out into the lobby 20 minutes later, they were waiting. Dad was the first to move. He walked up and pulled me into a hug. Not the stiff, ceremonial kind he used to give at birthdays. This one was real, heavy, long, almost desperate. That was incredible, he said into my hair. I was so proud sitting there, thinking, that's my daughter. She wrote that. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Thanks for coming, I said. I wasn't sure you would. Your mother wanted to, he said. She read the book twice, realized how much of it was about her, about how you felt invisible. She needed to be here. Mom was crying, quietly, sincerely. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking, for all of it, for not listening, for thinking love meant control. I hugged her. You were scared, I whispered. That's all. She nodded against my shoulder. Danny lingered behind them, arms crossed. She looked smaller than I remembered. I read it, she said finally. The part about me, the one who measured her worth in spreadsheets and silence. I winced. Danny! It hurt, she interrupted, because it was true. We stood there, two women raised in the same house but taught to speak different languages. You were always brave, she said quietly. I just didn't know how to be. That makes two of us, I said. For the first time in years, she smiled. Not her corporate smile, but the real one. Then she reached out her hand. I looked at it, then pulled her into a hug instead. We're family, I whispered. Hugs are mandatory. She laughed through her tears. God, you're still weird. When the crowd thinned, Lucas appeared at the edge of the room. He'd flown in without telling me. Hey, he said softly, you killed it. You're not supposed to say that about book events, I teased, blinking fast to keep from crying. He grinned. Then you worded it to death. I laughed. Too loud, too relieved. But then he added, Sabrina's been posting about you. Something about how success changes people. Ignore it. I already have, I said, and I meant it. Because standing there, surrounded by the people who once broke me, but now showed up to watch me rebuild, I realized I didn't owe anyone my silence anymore. That night we went to dinner. A small family place, no tablecloths, no judgment. Dad ordered the wine without comment. Mom kept touching my hand like she couldn't believe I was real. Danny asked questions about my next book. It wasn't perfect. There were still pauses, things unsaid, old ghosts hovering at the edge of conversation, but it was human. As we left, Dad put his hand on my shoulder. You know, he said, I used to think you were lost. Turns out you were just finding a different map. I smiled, and you finally decided to stop redrawing it for me. He chuckled. Guess I did. We stood under the Chicago night, city lights like open books all around us. For once, there was nothing left to prove. 6 months after Chicago, I was invited to speak at my alma mater, the same university where my father once bragged I'd make a name for myself someday. He just hadn't imagined it would be this name, this story. The auditorium was packed. They called it a distinguished lecture, which made me laugh because most of my early writing had been done in pajamas with ramen stains on my keyboard. When I walked on stage, I spotted them immediately, my entire family, sitting together in the front row. Dad, Mom, Danny, even Aunt Carol, clutching a program like it might burst into flames if she didn't hold tight. I started my speech the way I started my book, with failure. When people say failure builds character, I began, they never mention how much it destroys before it rebuilds. My failure was simple. I wanted to be seen, and my family wanted me to be safe. Turns out those two things rarely look alike. The room went still. I spent years trying to earn approval I already had the right to. When I stopped begging for it, everything changed. Not because they suddenly believed in me, but because I started believing in myself. I glanced at Dad. His eyes glistened in the front row. 2 years ago, I walked out of a dinner where my father told me I'd never amount to anything. I was angry. I thought walking away was the end of our story. But it was just the beginning, because sometimes love only finds you after pride has been stripped away. The crowd applauded quietly. That soft, respectful kind of applause that means they get it. I ended the speech with something I hadn't planned to say. If you're waiting for someone else to believe in you, stop. Start first. Let them catch up later. And when they do, forgive them for taking so long. The audience rose to their feet. I looked down at Dad. He was crying openly. Mom was too. Even Danny clapped, like she meant it. Afterward, the university hosted a dinner for us. It wasn't fancy, just warm light, good food, quiet conversation. Dad ordered wine again, but this time he didn't hide behind it. "I've been reading your book again," he said, the second time through. "Why?" I asked, half teasing. Because the first time I was defensive. The second time, I paid attention. I saw myself in the good parts too, not just the ones that hurt. I smiled. "That's progress." He chuckled. "You were right, about everything. I tried to fit you into my idea of success because I thought that was how I protected you." "You were protecting me," I said softly, just in a language I didn't understand. He nodded, eyes glistening. "I'm sorry it took a book deal for me to finally listen." "I'm not," I said, "because without all of that, the fights, the silence, there wouldn't have been a story worth telling." He reached for my hand. "You're still teaching me how to believe in people for who they are, not who I want them to be. And you're teaching me that people can change, even when I stopped expecting them to." We sat there quietly, not like strangers, not like adversaries, like two humans meeting somewhere new, past pride, past pain. A few months later, my second novel was released. This one wasn't about my family. It was about strangers finding their way back to themselves. But on the dedication page, I wrote, "For my father, who learned how to believe." He called me the day it hit shelves. "You didn't have to do that," he said, voice cracking. "I know," I replied, "but I wanted to." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, "I love you, Sarah. Not because you succeeded, because you never gave up on becoming who you are." I smiled. "I love you too, Dad. Even when it took years for us to mean the same thing by love." A year later, the adaptation of Inheritance of Silence premiered on streaming. Interviews, red carpets, applause that didn't echo half as loud as the quiet dinner nights with family afterward. Mom started volunteering at a bookstore. Danny joined a creative writing club, just to understand what this madness feels like. Dad still went golfing with Harold, except now Harold couldn't finish a round without Dad bragging, "You know my daughter, the author?" And I didn't mind. Not anymore. Because somewhere between defiance and forgiveness, we'd stopped performing and started connecting. Sometimes I still go to that little park where I wrote most of the book. Same bench, same skyline. I sit there and think about the girl I was. Scared, broke, desperate to be seen. I wish I could tell her, "You don't need to prove them wrong. You just need to prove yourself right." I think she'd believe me now. As the sun goes down, I whisper the words I once wrote for the last page of my debut. The silence that once hurt now holds peace. Because the moment you stop needing applause, you start hearing your own heartbeat again. And that's the only approval that ever really mattered.